just got an alert there from the embassy, but also they are told to stay put and no need to travel at this point. Here to unpack this story further, we're joined live now by Newzroom Afrika's U.S. correspondent, Simon Mark. Simon, good to have you. Thank you very much for your time. What is Congress saying about what is going on now? What is the operation currently on the ground, Operation Fury?
Well, Congress, like the rest of us here in the United States, Thabo, was taken completely by surprise. There is no indication that most members of Congress were even awake when this military action got underway. There will be many members of Congress who argued, and indeed have been arguing for days leading up to this military operation, that the War Powers Act requires the President of the United States to engage with consultations with them, especially when he is saying today that major ongoing combat operations are underway against Iran. There were no meaningful consultations with members of Congress. And even more broadly than that, the president risks being accused of breaking American law, never mind international law. And remember, this is the administration that has never even attempted to justify its attack on Venezuela under international law, the attack in January that led to the overthrow and abduction of President Nicolas Maduro in Caracas. American law, a statute enacted by President Ronald Reagan in 1981, prohibits the president or any other American government official from launching efforts to kill foreign heads of government or senior officials. And it is absolutely apparent from the reporting that has emanated from Iran over the last few hours that the United States is assuredly trying to kill both the country's supreme leader, the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, but also Iran's president, Masoud Pezeshkian. The whereabouts of both of them are unclear at this particular moment. I mean, this is a Trump administration that has not explained to the American people why this military action is justified, and cannot explain to either the American people or the Iranian people what the outcome of this is going to be. And remember, it's the same President Donald Trump who was elected promising his own supporters and the American people more broadly that he was not going to get America dragged into wars in far-off places about which the American people knew little and understood even less. He was all about bringing troops back from distant theaters where wars had been waged. In the case of Afghanistan, the longest war in American history. Suddenly, here is a president of the United States going for broke. I mean, essentially playing a game of 52-card pickup in the Middle East. He has, by his own admission, no idea of how all of this is going to end up. He's calling for regime change in Tehran. He's not telling anybody what kind of government he wants to put into place. And if you look at what he has said to the people of Iran in the last few hours, the contradictions are built into just 2 paragraphs of that televised address he made. He promised Iranians that the hour of your freedom is at hand, but while he was asking them to rise up and seize what he called your only chance for a generation, he then also told them to stay sheltered, don't leave your home, it's very dangerous outside, bombs will be dropping everywhere. And in case that hadn't caused enough confusion, he then went on to say, now is the time to seize control of your destiny, to unleash the prosperous and glorious future that is close within your reach. This is the time for action. So this is the time for action. But don't go outside because it's too dangerous and bombs are dropping everywhere. And this is massive ongoing military operations aimed at toppling a government But replacing it with what? The United States is not making that clear.
Except, of course, the firestorm of criticism, as you put it, from lawmakers that would slam this action as illegal. Is President Donald Trump likely to receive any significant backlash, or is this action likely going to attract any significant backlash for him?
Well, the answer to that, Thabo, depends in partly on what happens over the next few hours and days. I mean, if by some extraordinary turn of circumstances, there is a very quick transition in Iran away from the ruling regime and towards some kind of new dispensation, well, that would obviously be a very different set of circumstances. But at the moment, you've got the President of the United States telling Iran's brutal revolutionary guards, the men who just a few weeks ago were shooting demonstrators on the streets all over Iran, that they must lay down their weapons and surrender. Well, there's nobody to surrender to in Iran. Who are they supposed to surrender to? And the president's also promising them complete immunity for all their past actions. But how is any member of Iran's Revolutionary Guard possibly supposed to believe that the United States can deliver on that promise of complete immunity when the American president cannot identify what Iran's future governing arrangements are going to look like? Now, every American president, whenever they launch military action, is always accused of breaking the War Powers Act. I've been here, as you know, over 30 years. I can't remember any American military action that has ever satisfied the demands of Congress in terms of consultation. So the reality is that often American presidents can emerge completely unscathed from having taken power into their own hands and decided to wage war. However, the outcome here is so profoundly uncertain that the fear on Capitol Hill is going to be that Donald Trump has simply gone for broke. He has no idea other than what the outcome of this is going to be, and is simply hoping that the brute force, the size of the force that he's assembled in the Middle East, the most powerful assembly of American military power since George W. Bush attacked Iraq in 2003, the size of that force coupled with the Israeli military is going to deliver some kind of dispensation that works out better for the United States in the region and for Iranians. If that fails, and remember that America's regional allies have been warning the United States for weeks against attacking Iran, fearing that it would spark a wider regional conflict. If they turn out to be right, and that this is going to spiral into something much bigger, then I think all bets will be off for this American president. This is a game of 52 card pickup. He's taken all the cards, thrown them up in the air at a time when his approval ratings here in America are at record lows, when Republicans are terrified that if free and fair elections take place in the United States this November, and that in and of itself is a big question, they will lose their majorities on Capitol Hill. This is a president of the United States going for the ultimate distraction, with his fingers crossed and his toes crossed as well, and hoping that it all works out okay.
Speaking of a vote in November, two congressmen, we are seeing reports, Thomas Massey as well as Ro Khanna, are planning a forced vote next week on the Iran War Powers Resolution. How is this likely going to impact on Trump's ongoing military campaign?
Well, it's important to underscore that Thomas Massey is a Republican. He's a dissident Republican who has been in the vanguard of efforts to try and force the release of all the millions of documents pertaining to Jeffrey Epstein that the Department of Justice is still withholding. So he is very much on the White House enemies list. That vote, if it were to come to a vote, is obviously going to put Republican members of Congress in a bit of a bind. I mean, the Democrats will clearly condemn this military action against Iran. That's a built-in no. But Republicans are going to be put in a bind because it will force them to go on the record at what by then is still likely to be a very early stage of this massive ongoing military operation that the president has announced overnight. And their votes in that debate will, of course, be an indelible mark on their political record as they go into midterm elections in November that will see 1/3 of the Senate and the entire House of Representatives up for grabs. So for Republicans in the House of Representatives, that's got to be a concern, and it will be very interesting to see what the second in line to the presidency here, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mike Johnson, has to say about this military action that the president has launched over the last few hours. Again, military action that Americans have no understanding of the reasons behind it and are being given no future for Iran other than vague phrases talking about a prosperous and glorious future being within the grasp of Iranian citizens themselves.
Simon Marks, appreciate your time. Our U.S. correspondent for Newzroom Afrika there. Simon Marks.